Welcome to the Requel Pitch Podcast. I'm your host, Tyler, the Superman of Blue. Excuse me for that cough. Yep, I'm getting over it. I'm making this pitch early on because one of my things is I want to say my thoughts before too much information comes out. And before you're like, Tyler, you're already pitching the third movie in this trilogy of Superman films? Well, yeah. And here's why. This comes from two things. One from my daughter, one from a quote from James Gunn. James Gunn recently stated that certain projects that they had announced they were working on for DC, they're kind of reshuffling and working on. One being The Authority. And he said, in a world with the boys, it's kind of hard to really find a place for The Authority. And I thought about that. Now, my daughter, the other day we were filming something, and I said, just go grab me a comic book off my shelf. Well, she went in my box, grabbed one, and it was the first issue of Superman and the Authority by Grant Morrison. So I thought about it in this sense. Superman 3 is Superman versus the Authority. And I think, because of what James Gunn said, and based on that book, I think you make the Authority because you're already introducing the engineer. And that's really why we're using more of this idea of the Authority. But in that Superman and the Authority, Manchester Black is in it. And you make the film based off, at the heart of it, whatever happened to the Man of Tomorrow. Or not that, sorry. Whatever happened to Truth, Justice, and the American Way. Or the animated Superman versus the Elite. And that is where, but you use kind of the Authority. And if The Boys is a parody of like DC and Marvel, let's make kind of this reverse on The Boys. And I say that because I think at the heart, The Boys is a good show, but it is a hard R-rated show. And I know that there are people who would like the message and the ideas that's presented there, but do not like the presentation. And if you kind of do the same thing, but present it in this PG-13 kind of way, so that you can sell this ideas to children, and help them understand this concept of being accountable and what a force of people who have no accountability look like, and really how powerful and strong Superman's code of morality really is. Now, some of these themes may be hinted at and presented in James Gunn's Superman. I do not know. But I'm just saying you kind of blend the Authority and the Elite together as one kind of idea entity. We know how they take comics and they mix them and they make them different for film, and it's not always a one-to-one translation. So, you do this story, and I will probably revisit this pitch as we progress with James Gunn's Superman the Universe, because not having a lot to go off of for what his Superman will be, as far as what the story entails, characters and details and all that you can come up with, and you make a solid pitch. Much like, my pitch for 2 was based on the idea that they're already doing a Superman and a Supergirl, and we have not got Brainiac. And my idea was to do that story for the second movie and make it a Superman and Supergirl movie. And then this would be, the third Superman film. Once again, him standing on his own. I think that's very, very important. As much as I like the way that James Gunn is able to bring together groups of people, and how this film launches, Superman has Hawk Girl and Green Lantern and everything. That's great. It's cool. It's neat. Whatever. I think what's so pure about Superman versus the Elite, and I say versus the Elite because James, my co-host on Krypton Report, my Superman-based podcast that I do, we reviewed the film. We did a commentary. It's been years since we actually reviewed the film of Superman versus the Elite in December of it was in February of 2024. Apologies. I'm trying to remember everything we've done. And that was the first podcast I had ever done, and how important that story is about lone Superman standing up against these powerful uh, forces. Now, I think Superman standing up against the elite by himself is what we need to see in a type of third Superman film. We've already done so much with Krypton and across Superman in all media that if we did a film series that focused more on character and value and what he represents would be very interesting. With, like I said, this film being your 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 kind of final staple of where the world is going and the importance of Superman could be awesome. Just, but like I said, I think that there's hints of maybe that idea. If there's hints of those themes in the first film, then you really use those themes in a third film. I think you got something like a solid Superman trilogy. You know, um, and you get to have more characters by having the authority in there. And like I said, you mix it with a Manchester Black, maybe the Engineer returns, bring in Midnighter. I wouldn't do Apollo, maybe tease Apollo. I feel like his powers are too much similar to Superman's, and not sure, but I'm not sure who my team would be at this moment. Because I could see it being very much the way Marvel, as of this recording, we're preparing for the release of the Thunderbolts here in a little over a month and a half, whatever. And my buddy Brian is, he's like, oh, that's not really the Thunderbolt team. That team, there's a lot of people who are on the Thunderbolts. This was the original team. And I get it. But, this is the MCU version of the Thunderbolts, where they've taken these characters they've created and put them on a team. And I kind of see that a little bit, how we could get the Authority, where we have characters who are in the comic, the Authority, but then we have characters who have been introduced or are characters of the comic universe that we want to put in here that fills a certain type of, not demographic, but ideology, that you put in there. What does each one of these characters represent? So I think you have the foundations for a really good film there. Now, the only other thing I would say with the development of this new universe, I wouldn't mind seeing a Justice League film before the third Superman film. And this isn't going back towards like the Marvel model or anything, but let's think about the forgotten film Iron Man 3. Iron Man 3 was about putting Tony back into like the cave and kind of Tony relying on his wits and his ability. You have Superman with a team, which is the Justice League, do some battle, and then he has this team of friends. And then you have him on his next time we see him, it's back to him just by himself. I think that just helps prove a point of more of the importance of Superman. Not as much as just the hero, physical powers, but just what he represents in the ideology. The truth and hope, the better tomorrow, kindness, compassion, just goodness, and coming over, that there is light in the world, there is good in the world, and there is virtue, and there is all the things that we wish were real. Like this meme I saw said, sitting around wishing that Superman was real, or standing up and going out and representing the values and ideology that he represents. And I think you show that in this film. And if you've not seen the animated Superman versus the Elite, check it out. If you've read the comic that it's based off by Joe Kelly, Whatever Happened to Truth, Justice, and the American Way, read that. There are differences. It has been a while since I've read that, so I do need to revisit it to further this pitch. And of course, I would streamline a little bit. There's some things in the Elite, like with the interdimensional ship and stuff they have. I kind of would cut that out. I like this really mix of the sci-fi element is Superman and the characters with powers, but it feels real and down to earth because they are, on our planet, and there's not like spaceships and things like that as well. But that is my pitch for Superman 3 of the James Gunn universe. Uh, Superman versus the Authority. And yes, I would put versus in there because it is a battle between not only physically but of the moral consciousness of people. So that's my thought. Let me know in the comments below. Going to get this out and enjoy Superman. Check out Krypton Report. Let me know your thoughts on the new film or just anything in general. And if you have an idea for a sequel or a pitch or a movie that you're like, man, you know what I'd really like to see? Send me an email, jtypatrick@gmail.com, or just leave it in the comments below.